So he said, wait a minute, there's something is wrong here. He asked a very interesting question. He said, how do we know what is science and what is not science? And that was the beginning of the philosophy of science. His question was very simple. Why do we say that the theory of relativity is science and astrology is not science? Why? And he found a very interesting answer. He said that theory of Einstein can be disproved by an experiment. You can arrange an experiment that will disprove it, and astrology cannot. That means that any scientific statement is a statement that potentially can be disproved by an experiment.
Why can't astrology be disproved by an experiment? If the astrologer says next Tuesday you're going to meet a tall, handsome man, and next Tuesday comes and this short guy comes along and she falls in love, it's proved or disproved, is it not?
That's true, but the way it works, that it's not based on experiments. If it doesn't happen, there was an influence from that star we didn't take into consideration. There was
that sounds like a scientific explanation, doesn't it?
Not exactly, because astrology, well, I'm not an expert in astrology, I'm just quoting what he said. But what he meant, that astrologers do not conduct experiments and do not require experiments to prove or disprove their statements.
Astrology is recognized in the Gemara and the Talmud at the end of Masechet Shabbos, page 153 in the Gemara. However, the Steipler Goyen, as well as Rabbi Elishev, is very emphatic, and as a wonderful physician that you are, that healing as a result of using astrology for alternative methods is not
let's not go into astrology. But the question, let's concentrate on Einstein. Okay, let's here his statement about Einstein was very clear, that basically only something that can be disproved by an experiment is scientific, meaning it's never an absolute truth, because it has a potential to be disproved. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but that's what it is. More than that, sometimes this statement is not necessarily logical. The classic example is something called wave-particle dualism. Somebody learned physics. He knows that electron sometimes behaves as a particle, and sometimes it behaves as a wave. Now, it's impossible from the logical point of view for something to be a particle and a wave at the same time. So what it is it a particle or is it a wave? More than that, in early experiments, if you use something called electron gun that emits one electron at a time, and let's say I'm oversimplifying it, and you open two holes, electron can go through both holes at the same time with different probability. How is that possible? Particle cannot do it, and he does it in a way that wave can do it either. So, is it a particle or a wave? The answer is neither.
How are you spelling that word wave? How are you spelling that word wave?
Wave. Yeah, wave. Yeah.
Either a particle or a wave?
Yes. So, and it cannot be either at the same time. It cannot be both at the same time. So, what is it? The answer is very interesting. It's neither a particle nor a wave. Electron is a model that we created in order to explain this experiment. In other words, the science switched from the science of absolute truth to the science of model. Meaning, per definition, it's not an absolute truth. It's a model that we created in order to describe certain experiments. We know it will change in the future, or may change in the future. It's a model that helps us out to describe it. More than that, the behavior of electron is not predetermined. We're talking about the whole quantum mechanics is talking about probabilities. Why is this very important? Does anybody have any idea why probability issue is very, very important? Why is it so important?
For estimative reasons, in terms of application of time, for pneumacological reasons. I have a lot to say about what Rav Soloveitchik would say, but later.
Okay, but I'll try to say it in a very simple language. You know, we mentioned Laplace, and those who learn physics remember his law about tension in the vessel, that it's related to radius. He was a very interesting physicist, and he repeated the statement that God, I don't need this hypothesis. But he said also something very interesting. He said, if we all are built from particles, and these particles are, let's say, like balls that collide or connect to each other, according to the laws of Newton, we know that their behavior is predetermined by the equations of Newton. True, we cannot calculate it because there was no supercomputers in the days of Laplace, but it's clearly predetermined. Like, it's predetermined that if I drop or roll this object, we can calculate the speed, the acceleration, and so on. The behavior of the object is predetermined. From that point of view, he concluded, all our behaviors are predetermined. There is no such thing as freedom of choice, because we're just a bunch of molecules that behave according to certain equations, physical and biochemical equations, right? True, we cannot calculate them, but they're predetermined. And that's why the freedom of choice is an illusion. All are kind of biochemical reactions. And that's why I think this view is pretty depressing, but he believed in that as scientifically true. You know, we are completely accidental because the world was not created. And it's kind of we're a bunch of self-limited biochemical reactions that are predetermined. You have this illusion that you do something because you want something to do, but there are certain chemicals in the brain who tell you what to do. In this view, I'll just finish this part and then I'll ask a question. And this view was shattered with quantum mechanics because it proved that there are no balls that collide. That it's all based on probabilities and it's not predetermined. And that opened the possibility for the freedom of choice, which was a big shock for science.
But then how can we have freedom of choice if what we choose only has a probability? In other words, we don't have freedom of choice even under this, even assuming that it's probabilities, that doesn't really give us freedom of choice, because freedom of choice assumes that we can choose something and that things will therefore happen because we've chosen something. But meanwhile, it's just a probability that something will happen because...
We'll talk about it in the end, but you cannot use science to prove a philosophical concept. That's the answer.
Right.
But according to this model, there is no real contradiction between this and the freedom of choice, because we do not behave according to the Newtonian system.
That's why in Gemara, Chulin Zion, on the base, we see everything is preordained, even the slightest scratch. However, in Kovdei Shemayim, Chutz Me'yer Shemayim, we find there's 4 places in the Gemara.
That's very good.
No, it's important. The Sefta Nida has